Hey everybody, welcome back to, I guess you can see, a revised part 2. Yeah, I went overboard on my 15 minutes because I'm so used to the 15 minutes. Not used to the 15 minutes, but used to overdoing it. But anyway, as I was saying, if I remember correctly, at the end of part 1 I was talking about the scores. And the head score, the head portion of the main story, got a 5. The artistic part got a 10, so you got 15 out of the 30. Now the heart score basically gets an 8. Yeah, the heart of the story gets an 8 because here's why it gets an 8. He points out something that even I pointed out at one time at several of the forums and even on other places, I think even here on YouTube. The fact that instead, this is what he says about it. This is what he says. This is what he says about the heart score, the reason he gave it an 8. He says, the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that Sally has had only one motive for wanting Tails and the others to get going. Some part of her, despite being mechified, still cares about them. Now, clue you in on something. You go back to when she was fighting Monkey Kong, I think in Sonic Universe, I believe, in the Eggman Scrambled story. And you might remember Monkey Kong took his crown, his ring crown, and placed it in Sally, if you will, when her other one drained out. And if you remember right, maybe we're wrong or not, but that one that she was placed in her originally was modified. So think about it. Think about it. For 1 second, folks, think about it. Alright. Now he says that this is the kind of clue he's been looking for ever since she let herself get zapped or roboticized. There is precedent in the Sonicverse for this. Of course, when Sonic's Uncle Chuck, who, as he mentions, will be appearing in the backstory, was roboticized, he was able to eventually regain control of his mind and work undercover for the freedom fighters. I understand, the resistance. So this is, and he puts it out that this is definitely not a stretch to hope, and basically this is what he says, quote, so it's definitely not a stretch to hope that Ian's taking a page from that playbook. And that's why he gave the heart score of the story, the heart of the story, an 8. So overall, he gave it a 23 out of 30, which grade-wise, 30 would be A+, 25 would be a B+, so you're essentially looking like it may be a B- at most. A B- at most, if you will. Or an average of a B. Now the backstory just gives short detail on how the backstory, which is called Foundation Work, which is the prologue to the Secret Freedom Fighters arc in Sonic Universe, came about. And the score he gives for the head, so basically I'll provide a link down so you guys can read what he says about it. But what the score he gives here, now let me remind you, and I said this I think in part 1, that when there's 2 stories, a main story and a backstory, both stories combine together, in his eyes, combine together, you combine both scores together, gives you an idea of how well this comic is, or what kind of a grade it could get. Well, again, I'll let you read the short exposition, which is right here, of what he has to say about the backstory, Foundation Work, which again, like I say, is a prologue to the Secret Freedom Fighters Sonic Universe arc. But this is the score he gives. So again, 3 categories. Highest score you can get in 3 is 10, which would make 30. So the head score, if you will, the head score he gives to the head portion of the story is a 7. So that's not bad. 7 so far is not bad. The I score he gives a 10 because it's somebody different, which is, the person's name is Evan Stanley. Now the heart of the score, though, the heart score is a low 2. So basically he gives it a 19 out of 30, which essentially is a 42 combined together with, which is a 19 out of 30, which is on par as being like a C, if you will. Not a C plus, but a C. So combined together, the 23 and the 19, you got 42 out of 60, which essentially, when you think about it, 60 is A plus, 55 is B plus, 50 is C minus, is C plus, I should say. 50 is C plus, 45 is D plus, so you're looking at an average of almost a D minus overall grade-wise for the entire comic. Because overall score is 42 out of 60, which is essentially a D minus, grade-wise. Now I know you're thinking, well, you're probably wrong about that. Well, maybe I am, but I don't really think so. Because again, I'm just going by what I remember from school. How they would grade things percentage-wise and stuff. Well, and school-wise. Well, essentially, this is overall, in his eyes, essentially around a D minus overall grade of a D minus. Because of the overall score being 42 out of 60. Now, the thing is, he does mention somebody in this issue that worked on one of the stories, if not a few stories, back in the mid-2000s, and that's Danny Fingerarth, who he mentions right now teaches online classes on how to write comic books, and graphic novels. Basically write stories for them. And all because this Danny guy, works for both Marvel and DC. And he mentioned that when Danny Fingerarth wrote The Heart of a Hedgehog back in the mid-2000s, he basically, essentially gave it heart. He did basically a better job than I guess anybody had done in that period. He's basically saying that basically the comparison I think he's trying to make is if Danny Fingerarth was working on this story, he would have given it some heart. But he does credit Ian for at least digging out into that past and digging up that source material and bringing it forward. And he gives the same kind of credit in the main story with the whole Sally situation. You see, the reason he gives some credit here is because to Ian Flynn on both accounts is because at least Ian Flynn's showing, and I think we all knew Ian Flynn is a fan still, right? Despite what problems we may have with the guy. Like I said, I've had my problems. Everybody else has had their problems. People like Laser and Prime, and heck, even Ezekiel 300. Let's not kid ourselves, has had his problems. But anyway, at least he's giving credit and acknowledgement, according to what Dan's saying here, credit and acknowledgement to past source material. When he mentions that Sally may not be totally lost to the fan base because of the fact that she warns, let me check my time here. Okay, it's 8 minutes. Just making sure. I don't want to overdo it. But just because of the fact that she warns the Freedom Fund, she warns Tails that, hey, you got one option. You can either go and help them or keep chasing after me. What's it going to be? What's more important? Basically, in a sense, she's saying, what did we teach you? Essentially, what she's trying to get to Tails with this alternative is if there's a part of her there, which according to Dan Drazen seems to be, or Ian Flynn's hinting at, that perhaps she's trying to tell him, look, what did I teach you as a freedom fighter? Always put others before yourself or before something, or before the other. Put others before anything else. See what I'm saying? So essentially, by reasoning, there is a part of her that's still there. And again, you got to clue yourself back in to the whole situation with Monkey Kong and Sonic Universe. And that's why he said this is what he's been looking for. Now, is this a one-shot deal? No. Does it help that she comes back and says divide and conquer? Not really, but still, this what I'm thinking could be cluing us in even more so as we get towards her restoration, is that perhaps when Monkey Kong put his crown, his ring crown into her, that it awoke a portion of her that's able to come out every now and then and say, it's me, don't worry, I'm still here. And perhaps the reasoning is part of that. Perhaps the reasoning with Tails in 238 is part of that. I'm not entirely sure. But that is Dan Drazen's review. Basically, this has been Dan Drazen's review overall on 238. Again, I'll provide a link down below so you guys can read both reviews. The overall score he's given for the entire comic book issue is a 42 out of 60, essentially grade-wise, in my opinion, from what I could tell in my opinion, I guess in his, a D-. But, you know, at least he gives the main story at least a high grade for the first time in quite a while. So, give him credit there. So, overall, definitely read this. Comment down below, response if you like, and I'll talk to you all later.